Hey everyone, it's good to see you again. I am back with another wonderful guest. Now, Jeff here, we met recently, not too long ago. But we really connected and I really wanted to interview him because he does something that is super special. And I've never met anybody that does this, and it sounds like so much fun with what he does, but he also helps other companies build their business. So I thought this was just a perfect interview for all of you. So my name is Johnny Urban, and I am from Stop the Madness Business Solutions. And this is where business owners hire me to increase their revenues without spending any more money on marketing or advertising. And you can find me at www.stmbusiness-solutions.com. So now I want to introduce to you Jeff, my friend Jeff. And what Jeff does, Jeff Rogers, what he is he's a corporate videographer. He doesn't go out and videographer squirrels running up a tree. No, he's a big man corporate. And he's got a huge background of doing this for many, many years. But let me tell you, Rogers Real Productions is the name of his company. How cool is that? I just love it. So he's been doing this for over 17 years, close to 18 years is what he just shared with me. And what he basically does, he loves to do videos that are visual storytelling. And that he's been doing this since he was a child. So he's going to tell us more about that in a second, but it's basically a lifelong love and study that he's been doing. So it's just crazy. He's been he's worked for multiple video production companies over the years, even before he started his company. And then he made the leap of faith to start his own company. So he jumped into that. And this is what he's been doing for nearly 18 years. He's been known to make video trainings for big corporations and creating up to, and also including creating video press kits for book launches. And then the other thing too, that it's crazy. If you've ever seen a real estate ad where you see the videos go flying, the images flying overhead. And I remember talking to my husband about it and I go, do they hire a helicopter? And I go, oh no, that's a drone. So that's what Jeff does. He makes these beautiful images to help other businesses grow. And so here we go. Welcome, Jeff. How are you?
Thanks, Johnny. It's great to be here. I'm doing great. How are you?
Awesome. It's a great day. So I have some questions for you, Jeff, because I think our audience wants to hear more from you. They really want to know, hey, who is Jeff? So my first question to you, Jeff, is like, why do you do what you do?
Well, I have been interested and fascinated by visual storytelling since I was a little kid, primarily at that time through, movies and TV shows. My dad was a huge movie buff. And I think he bought the first VCR that ever came out in like 1979 and started compiling all the movies that he grew up watching as a kid. And so I sort of got a very informal education into American cinema and history, watching Errol Flynn and Humphrey Bogart and John Wayne and all the, Clint Eastwood, all the stars of sort of his era of movies growing up. And I just fell in love with the power of stories to communicate ideas in a way that is a lot more, I think, effective and long lasting than just telling you information. A story brings emotion along with it. It brings visuals that are hard to get out of your head. You just remember things, sometimes negative things, sometimes really positive things. But the point is, it's really powerful. And I was just fascinated by that and really got into, okay, how do they do that? What are the mechanics underneath what makes a great story great and a not great story? How did it miss? Like, it seemed like it got all these great actors and great cinematography and all these other things were right. Why wasn't it as great as this other movie? Like, just sort of getting into the details of what makes for a compelling story. And then as I got older, I just started getting more and more interested in video production. And, I started my own company in 2004, doing videos. I had been working for another company and I was seeing how much they were charging to do what we were doing. And I was really the only person there at the company that could actually make the videos, the actual product. And I was like, I might just do better doing this myself. And so in 2004, I started my own company and just never really looked back. But, I've done all kinds of projects since that time, and it really is that's a really fun part of my job too, is it's always changing. So I'll work on a project for a month or so, and then it's on to something else completely different. And
Yeah.
so I really love that variety, and being able to sort of figure, okay, how are we going to do this one? What should we do for this? And figuring out the best way to bring the strongest impact to the client on each different job, because each different job, and each different client has a different set of needs, a different set of sort of positioning, and a different story that needs to be told. And so it's always I love that challenge of figuring out, okay, how are we going to put this person or this company in the best possible light, tell their story in the best possible way.
Wow. Yes. Yes. That is so, oh, that's so cool. That is like so powerful too for a business to have that type of piece of marketing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that is amazing. Thank you for doing that, Jeff. So anyway, I'm going to move on to some questions about how the COVID pandemic may have affected your business.
Okay.
And so my first question is, how often did authorities force your area to shut down where you're at?
Here in Southern California, I actually remember it was March 12th.
Mm-hmm.
It was either the 12th or the 14th. I was actually working on a project with a church down in La Jolla. They're doing a children's building renovation, and they were raising money. And so we were interviewing all these parents that had really benefited by having their kids involved in the program. And so on Thursday, we interviewed a bunch of people. And then on Sunday, we were going to get back together, and I was going to shoot a bunch of footage of them arriving at church and sitting in the pews and sort of being involved in the community there. And between Thursday and Sunday, COVID happened. And so, first on Friday or Saturday, we had one or two people go, oh, I'm not really feeling real safe about coming, and within a couple of hours, the whole thing had collapsed. It was like everybody was going into lockdown. And so, from March, I don't remember the exact dates of when it sort of started it sort of was up and down here. I would say there were at least two specific lockdowns in Orange County. Orange County had a little bit of a wild hair about resisting the lockdowns. And so, so it was a little bit different here. And so for each one, I mean, I think for the first one, everybody sort of went in, and then we started to slowly come out of it, and people stopped wearing their masks. And then the second time they said, no, everybody back into lockdown. That's when there was a good segment of people who were like, yeah, I'm not doing that again. So, at least twice during 2020.
Yeah, I remember that too. So yeah, it happened all of a sudden. And then we're just like, It was like a shock to our systems. And all of a sudden we couldn't find toilet paper. I couldn't find
That's right. Yeah.
I couldn't find my
weirdest things. The weirdest things that ran out of toilet paper.
Yeah. I remember I had to go to 4 different grocery stores to get the food I wanted instead of just maybe 2.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah. Didn't like
crazy.
that.
It was crazy for sure.
Yeah. And how long did it shut down last? I think the first one was the longest one.
The first one was longer. Yeah. I'd say the first one was probably, it was at least 5 months or something like that, 4 or 5 months, and then I think it started to loosen up a little bit, and then there was another one that I think lasted like 3 or 4. The second one was about a couple of months before the end of 2020.
Yeah.
So
they switched it. Our governor switched it to a tier system, a colored tier system.
Right. That's right. The red, purple.
Yeah.
Orange.
So that kind of shifted things a little bit too. So can I ask you, Jeff, about your business here? Is like, how much revenue would you estimate you lost during each shutdown? Did you have to shut down too?
You know what? I don't really have a specific number on that. I can tell you that all of my jobs immediately canceled, and I had several big ones lined up. I had a couple of big event coverage jobs, and of course, nobody was getting together for dinners and all those kind of things. And so those all got canceled right away. And I was initially like, oh no, this is going to be really bad for me. And actually, I was sort of fortunate during COVID because of the nature of what I do. As people started to realize that they couldn't get together and do large gatherings, they realized that video was a great way to still accomplish what they were trying to do.
Mhm.
So I had several jobs where I came in and did, uh, videoed things that were supposed to happen in person with a bunch of people, and
Yeah.
instead they just videoed it and put it up online for people to watch. And so I actually had quite a bit of work because people still needed to talk about their business, still needed to do their business, still needed to have big meetings. Unfortunately, I also ended up, I mean, it was again good for me, but unfortunate circumstances. I ended up doing quite a few memorial services because people couldn't get together in large groups to go
Yeah.
to funerals and that kind of thing. So we would either do a live stream or, record it and then put it up online the
Yeah.
next day or that kind of a thing. I did quite a bit of that as well. Yeah, so I think I had a pretty average year, um, even with COVID. It's just the nature of the business that I was doing shifted.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So your revenue do you feel your revenue dipped a little bit and you're coming maybe working your way up?
Yeah, I think it dipped the slightest amount. It wasn't really enough for me to feel it that much, honestly. It really opened up some things that I hadn't done before. So in some ways, it may have expanded a little bit. I think revenue wise, they had that whole FTP or TTP or whatever the loan
Yeah.
thing was. And I qualified for the first round of that. The second round, you had to show that you had a loss in one quarter in 2020
Yeah.
as opposed to other years. And I couldn't show that.
Yeah.
So there were no quarters that I actually had a loss. They were really close, but they weren't a loss. So like that's what I mean. I think it was pretty even through 2020. So again, I was very fortunate and blessed to get that kind of work during a time
Oh,
when a lot
good.
of people weren't getting work at all.
Good.
So
Wonderful. Wow, that's good
yeah.
to know. That's good to know. Um, could you tell me if you feel like it? This is like an optional question, but it's like, what impact did COVID have on your family?
Well, I'm single, so it's just me. My brother lives in Colorado Springs, and my mom and stepdad live in Michigan. I think for my brother also does video. He does um, video depositions. That's his full-time thing. So
Wow.
he works with a bunch of lawyers and doing video depositions. His business went to zero,
Mm.
literally like zero. He wasn't doing any work for at least 5 or 6 months. He had nothing going on, and then it slowly started to come back and has been back pretty much since the last couple of months. He's been working every day, so he's back in business. But he was out for a good portion of 2020.
Yeah.
It affected my relationship with my mom and stepdad because they're in their 70s. They were supposed to come out and visit that early in March when COVID first happened.
Yeah.
And they ended up canceling that trip because of the fear of being, getting the virus.
Yeah.
And then for most of 2020, there were a couple of other times where like, well, maybe we can come out here, and then it would just fall through, every time. And it was because of COVID specifically.
Yeah.
Concerns about getting COVID or being exposed. And they live in a retirement community that's like just a big, huge high-rise apartment building.
Oh,
And they were all sequestered in their individual apartments, for
wow.
pretty much the whole year. Unfortunately, they're on the ground floor with their own private exit outside. And so it was a lot easier for them to just go out and go for a walk or do whatever. But all the, they used to have meals in a general, like, it was like, I describe where they live is like a cruise ship that doesn't move, because that's sort of what it is. There's a floor or a deck that's a big dining room, and they all go have meals and shifts, and there's different floors that have different activities and things on it. And so it's just a big cruise ship that doesn't move. It has a pool, the whole deal. But when COVID hit, they were just, everybody stay in your rooms. And that was pretty much it. They brought individual meals to the rooms, and they were just locked down. So I really couldn't see them as much as we had planned. I ended up going out there in September because it was my mom's 75th birthday. And I was like, COVID or no COVID, I'm going to be with my mom for her birthday. And so I made the trip out to see them.
Yeah.
And that was nice. But even then, there was a lot of COVID restrictions and things that we just had to really be careful of. And I couldn't go into the apartment building with them, and they would have to come meet me outside and we'd go do stuff and whatever. And so, there was definitely an impact there in terms of just being able to see people and get together. So.
Yeah. It'd be tough, but, and where they're at right now though are they, because I know like in Florida the numbers got good, but then they got worse again. They're really bad right now. So
so my mom ended up coming out here in April. Mm-hmm. She flew out here, just her, came out and stayed out here for 4 or 5 days, and which was really nice. And so she was able to travel, and she got once my stepdad and mom were vaccinated, then that sort of opened the doors for them a little bit. And then, they were able in that interval to sort of travel until all the variants started coming out and all of that. And then I think, they've been probably more locked down now. They just got back from a trip to Colorado Springs and Utah, but they drove. They drove the whole way. And so, but, I think, they've reached a little bit of a saturation point where they're like, look, we're at an age where, we don't want to die from COVID, but we also don't want to live indoors in a tiny apartment for the rest of our natural lives. So we've got to sort of balance that, make that risk assessment, and decide what we're going to do and what we're going to not do. And so they've sort of figured that out, and they wear masks to certain things, and they've both been vaccinated and all that. And so, they've sort of done what they think they can do, but now they're sort of in a, let's get on with our rest of our lives, and whatever happens, and we'll try and take reasonable precautions. But so
that's what we can do.
Yep.
Okay. So another question is like, did your virus cause you to lose any employees or any help that you hired?
No, although indirectly, I think I mentioned to you earlier, there's a architectural photographer that I work with from time to time. And he works for the Irvine Company here, very large real estate holding company here in Orange County. And several people, so when I'm working with him, we had a couple of guys who were photographers that just would not come out to jobs. They were just not comfortable, being out working on stuff. And so now I'd say about halfway through the pandemic, maybe a little bit more than half, they started to come back. Maybe because they were just sort of feeling the pinch financially, and again, we're sort of making their own risk assessment. But that was definitely difficult because we need, these kind of jobs. You sort of need these positions. It's hard to do without a full crew. So I didn't personally lose anybody. Most of the jobs, I would say that's something that changed during the pandemic for me. Most of the jobs that I did were solo jobs where I might have 2 or 3 people. On a normal job, I would hire out 2 or 3 people to help with things. Because we were trying to limit exposure and number of people and stuff, I did almost all the jobs I did were solo. And so I didn't really lose anybody.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yay. Thank you. Last question. Are you taking any precautions from your experience with COVID to prepare for a similar disaster in the future? Because we all know history will repeat itself.
Well, I think the last, specific disaster, this was the Spanish flu back in 18 or 17, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Honestly, I haven't really that much. I guess I'm a little bit more risk. I'm not very risk averse. And so I'm definitely concerned about other people who want to be safe and want to provide whatever they need to be. But I really haven't done a whole lot of preparing for, anything worse. If this were to take, a very serious turn and we got a variant that was just killing everybody it came into contact with or something, then I would change But you know, I actually had COVID a couple of weeks ago, and well, almost a month ago
Mhm.
now. And it was a bad, you know, it was a flu. It was a bad flu. I had achy and a fever and fatigue, and you know, I had a little bit of a cough and lost my sense of taste and smell for 4 or 5 days. You know, all the sort of standard things. I didn't have pneumonia or anything like that. It was just, you know, it was a very annoying 2 weeks of just having to stay away from everybody and be in isolation. And fortunately, both the people that live in my house were leaving on trips and were gone for the exact period of time that I was isolated. So that actually one of them isn't back yet. But so that worked out really well. And so you know, I should have some natural immunity to it now for at least a period of time. I don't know how long,
Yeah.
but you know, I think really for me, the only real question is, you know, at what point will I consider getting the vaccine? I do really like to travel quite a bit, and so that might become something that just becomes sort of an obstacle to me traveling. And
Yeah.
you know, otherwise you've got to get a test before you go, and a test when you get there, and a test
Yeah.
when you're ready to come back, and it's all that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not an anti-vaccine person, but I did feel like this particular set of vaccines were brought to market pretty quickly, and my initial reaction was I would just like to see how this does out in the wild for a bit and see if people start growing new arms and legs, or a third eye in the center of their forehead.
Yeah.
And you know, and honestly, there's always stuff like that with any medical thing. There's always a certain percentage of weird things that happen, and the media sort of over reports that stuff, and it sounds like it's happening sometimes a lot more than it is. But
Right.
my general thought on that was I just want to wait for a bit and give it a year or so or whatever to sort of, you know, work out any kinks or problems that they might have with it, and then you know,
Yeah.
I'll probably get it at some point in the future. But that's really the only thing that I've really thought about in terms of preparation for future disasters. I'm not stockpiling toilet paper or, you know, food, although I've thought about doing that. I'm like, that honestly was one of the more annoying things,
Yeah.
that I think probably could have been, you know, maybe buffered a little bit, and just being able to get certain things, and just sort of having, especially dry goods, you know, those are things that don't go bad, and
Right.
you can stockpile a little bit of a buffer of, and then, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. But I haven't even done that. I've thought about it. I just haven't done it. That's the only thing where I've done, well, maybe I should, you know, have some dry storage food and other things around just in case there's something that happens that's longer than this.
Wait,
You know,
well,
it's
hey,
funny.
you know, we're in
Go ahead.
California. It's like we could have a major earthquake at any moment that would
Right, of course.
cut
Yeah,
off
same deal.
everything. So you to
Yeah,
always have something to be prepared
yeah,
for. And then as far as our businesses are concerned, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, put some money in the bank or something
right,
so that you can get past the worst of it. So yeah,
right. Yeah, yeah,
being prepared for any kind of disaster is a good idea.
yeah. And I do have a good financial buffer for something like that if that were to happen. So I'm definitely prepared in that regard.
Yeah, yeah. Smart thing.
Yep,
Thank you so much. So
of
Jeff,
course.
I understand that you have a gift for our listening audience. You want to give them something. What is that? Tell us about it.
Well, gift is, I use that term loosely here, but I do have an article that I like to share with people that is about 7 things that you can do to successfully market your commercial on YouTube, which is really, I mean, has become, you know, the new place to put your commercial, just because of how targeted you can make it. You can really dial in where you want it to be seen, who you want it to be seen by in terms of age demographic, gender, income. Like, you can really specifically target who the
Mhm.
customer is you want to see your video. And then the YouTube algorithm does a very good job at looking at what people are watching and sending it out to people that are going to fit that demographic. And so it's a really, really powerful marketing tool. And so the article that I sent, you know, has 7 tips for doing that. And there's a little 20% discount offer done at the end if you do a project with me and mention that article. So yeah, that was my gift to
Good.
all of your viewers.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. They're going to love that. And for you guys listening, it's like, I will make sure that the URLs, the downloadable, the URL to that downloadable PDF was in the show notes when I put it up on YouTube. So you can get easy access to that. So thank you, Jeff. And
Of course.
okay, so a question is like, how do they get a hold of you? I mean, yes, it's in the PDF, the information's in the PDF, so that's the best way, right? So get the PDF.
Well, you can go, if you want to look at a bunch of the projects that I've done, including a lot of my drone work, you can go to rogersreel.com. That's my website, and samples of my work are there, as well as a contact and submission form if you want to fill that out. I believe my phone number and email are also there, so you can reach out in whatever way is most comfortable to you.
Oh, wonderful. I'll make sure I have that in the show notes too. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So thank you so much, Jeff. It's been enlightening to hear even more about what you do and how you help people. And our listening audience is like, yeah, they're going to be like, whoa, we like this guy. So we like what he does. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. So again, I'm Johnny Urban. I am from Stop the Madness Business Solutions, where business owners hire me to increase their revenue without spending any more money on marketing and advertising than they already are. And I'm at www.stmbusiness-solutions.com. And I want to thank you for watching our video and having fun with us. Thank you.